You are now listening to Toni On One Radio, the talk show podcast station, bringing you Toni On One Podcast with open discussions, hot topics, as well as information, daily health, as well as your news report. All information and resources are based on the opinions of the host, unless otherwise noted. This podcast may contain some quotations, images, and/or excerpts from copyrighted material. These uses fall well within the copyright doctrine of fair use. All information is intended to motivate, encourage, and inspire positive change and a healthier lifestyle. Welcome to Toni On One Podcast. Welcome to another informative episode of the Toni On One Podcast. Today's hot topic is the pros and cons of social media censorship. This is really a hot button issue for a lot of people, and I can understand it because we all typically use social media. We say what's on our mind, what we're feeling, what we've read, what we've seen, and everything under the sun. Now, the question is, with social media censorship, does it violate any human rights and freedoms? So let's dive in. What are the pros and cons? Now, before we get to that, what is social media censorship? What does that mean? It refers to the practice of restricting or deleting content on social media platforms. So here are some of the potential pros and cons associated with this practice. We're going to start with the pros. The pros of social media censorship. 1, protecting users. Censorship can help protect users from harmful content such as hate speech, cyberbullying, and harassment. Now with that, the key is finding the balance, not deleting helpful content and speeches, but getting rid of that which promotes hate and violence and those sort of things. 2, reducing misinformation. Censorship can combat the spread of false information and prevent the potential harm it may cause. Now, we know some people get on social media and they post things that are not true. They're misleading information. It's not fact-based. So we have to be careful there on our own. But censorship is trying to help deal with that because we don't need everybody running around with the wrong information. So that's a real issue there. 3, maintaining public safety. By censoring certain content, social media platforms can help prevent a bunch of drama or harmful or dangerous information that could incite violence or illegal activities. Okay, protecting the community, especially children. I get that. 4, regulating harmful content. Censorship can help in moderating or removing content that promotes violence, terrorism, self-harm, or self-harm, making online spaces safer for everyone. Everyone who has been using social media knows that's an up and down sliding scale depending on the social media platforms and what they deem and see fit as harmful, which sometimes it can be an issue because sometimes what they delete does not actually, in fact, be harmful, just something they think nobody should know. But I'll move on. 5, compliance with laws and regulation. Censorship allows social media platforms to comply with local laws and regulations, ensuring they do not facilitate or promote illegal activities. Now, as an example of this, we can use about the election. There was a lot of harmful information up there being promoted, honestly, that caused a lot of issues that was not addressed but let go on. And then we had the January 6th insurrection. So that's just one example. So what are the cons of social media censorship? One, which is the main one, freedom of speech concerns. Now, critics argue that censorship on social media platforms can infringe upon users' freedom of speech rights, limiting open dialogue and expression. Now, that's cool and everything, but as I stated before, some things are thrown over into the harmful category and they don't belong there. That is an infringement. 2, bias and selective enforcement. Now, that's what I've been speaking on all through this. There is a concern that censorship may be selectively applied based on subjective interpretations and biases of the platform operators, potentially silencing certain viewpoints. And everyone's viewpoints, they want them seen, they want them heard. There are probably other people who think or have viewpoints that align with that. So bias and selective enforcement has been an issue. 3, lack of transparency. We know sometimes platforms may not provide clear guidelines or explanations for their censorship decisions, leading to confusion and mistrust among users, which is true because there's a lot of discussion online about this, and some platforms are losing people, while new platforms who are not doing these things are gaining people. So it's kind of a flip-flop situation there. Number 4, overreach and unintended consequences. Now, some argue that censorship policies may go too far, inadvertently blocking legitimate content or stifling innovation and creativity, which that is reasonable thought. 5, backlash, circumvention. Censorship attempts can often be circumvented through alternative platforms or technologies, leading to a game of cat and mouse and potential backlash against the platforms implementing the censorship. That is true, that it's a lot of cat and mouse because people want to be able to feel free to speak what's on their mind. Some people actually do just want to vent. Some people are actually trying to say things that are helpful. And shout out to all those with all the positive vibes. I'm loving this. And it is helpful. Keep going. Now, it is important to note that this is a complex and ongoing debate, and opinions on social media censorship can vary widely. So, back to the question at hand. Does social media censorship violate any human rights and freedoms? Again, many argue that social media censorship limits freedom of speech, which is a fundamental right in democratic societies. Freedom of speech allows individuals to express their ideas and opinions without fear of censorship or punishment. So when social media platforms censor certain content, some argue that it restricts this right. What do you all believe on this? Now, on the other hand, it is important to note that social media platforms are private entities and have their own community guidelines and policies. So we really need to check these policies. Whenever we sign up for anything or create an account for any of these platforms, it is very important that we read these guidelines and policies. Don't just accept it, click accept so you can hurry up and jump right in. definitely read the guidelines and policies. These guidelines aim to create a safe and inclusive environment for their users. Platforms may argue that by moderating and removing certain content, they are protecting their users from misinformation, hate speech, or other harmful content. However, again, critics argue that determining what constitutes harmful content can be subjective and potentially lead to biased enforcement. This raises concerns about the potential for these platforms to become powerful gatekeepers of information and free expression. It's a doozy. Everybody's going back and forth about this. Now, regarding the violation of rights and freedoms, legal experts argue that social media censorship does not typically infringe upon constitutional rights like freedom of speech. This is because the First Amendment in the United States, for example, primarily limits government actions, and social media platforms are private companies. So that's the catch-22 right there. But nevertheless, there have been instances where the public perception of certain content has shaped legal frameworks and led to debates about the limits of free speech on these platforms. Let's take, for instance, the banning of certain political figures or movements has sparked discussions about the impact of social media's content moderation on politics and public discourse. Now, I'll give another example on that. Anything dealing with race, where there's bashing, where there's talk of enslavement or things of that nature, yeah, that's an issue. Or with politicians, with trying to overturn elections or call to actions for violence, or just politicians during election time going back and forth, slinging dirt and mud on each other. Those type of things are really not needed. So while social media censorship may not technically violate constitutional rights and freedoms, its impact on free expression and the exchange of ideas is a complex and debated topic. It raises questions about the role of these platforms in shaping public discourse and the potential for bias in content moderation. So, when we look at social media, and this is all social media, there are things that we should use common sense on. And I know sometimes that does not happen. Some things we can just laugh at and go, that's stupidity. That's not true. But by the same token, there are people who do not use reasonable thought and just believe what's been said without fact-checking or anything and begin to act on that. And that begins the problem. Now, we have been diving into the profound impact of social media censorship on public rights and freedom. But we have to understand social media platforms have become a significant part of our lives, serving as invaluable tools for communication, information sharing, and activism as well. However, in the recent years, concerns about the power and responsibility of these platforms have truly intensified. So what can we truly do about this? There's always customer service. There's always, we can report the things that are not okay. And we can use common sense and let our children know, okay, you can't believe everything that is online. Because some things are just opinion, some people's rants, or even venting. And some things are actual helpful information that is usable. Now, another issue in the concentration of the power in the hands of a few tech companies, that's one we also need to discuss. The dominance of platforms like Facebook, Twitter, well, it's called X now, and YouTube has given them significant control over the information landscape. Their policies, algorithms, and moderation decisions can heavily impact what content is visible and accessible to the public. This concentration of power raises concern about the potential for bias, political manipulation, and the creation of echo chambers, which ultimately limit the free flow of ideas that strengthen our democracy. So, in conclusion, the impact of social media censorship on public rights and freedoms is a complex and evolving issue. We're not done with this. For years to come, there is still going to be trying to some sort of reform. While moderation policies can be necessary to protect users, it is crucial to strike a balance that ensures genuine concerns are addressed without stifling free speech and public discourse. As we continue to grapple with these challenges, it is vital to foster transparency, promote diverse perspectives, and create mechanisms for accountability to safeguard the rights and freedoms of all individuals in the digital age. Now, what are the rights and freedoms? These are some of the rights and freedoms that are essential to maintaining a fair and just society. Rights and freedoms play a crucial role in the framework of a democracy, allowing individuals to live with dignity, express themselves freely, and participate in the decision-making processes that affect their lives. These rights and freedoms are often enshrined in constitutional or legal documents and vary from country to country. However, there are some fundamental rights and freedoms that are universally recognized and are considered fundamental to human rights. Now, one of the most fundamental rights in the right to life, which encompasses the right to be protected from violence and arbitrary deprivation of life. Every individual has the right to live in a safe and secure environment. Freedom of expression is another important right that allows individuals to express their opinions, thoughts, and ideas without fear of retribution or censorship. This right encompasses various forms of expression, such as speech, writing, art, and the press. It ensures that individuals have the freedom to share their thoughts and engage in open dialogue. Now, another one is the right to privacy. It's also essential in today's digital age. It includes the freedom from surveillance, intrusion, and interference into one's personal life. It protects an individual's personal information, communication, and activities from unwanted intrusion. Now, these three rights, someone somewhere has had to deal with this, stemming from social media platforms. But we have these rights, and hopefully with this topic, if someone did not know what they were when it came to social media platforms and censorship, hopefully now you do. And it is within your legal right to stand on these rights because they were put in place for us. Now, these were just a few examples of the rights and freedoms that are crucial for a fair and just society. It is essential for governments and individuals to respect and protect these rights as they form the foundation of our democratic values and create a society that believes in equality, justice, and dignity for all. So what are your thoughts on social media censorship? Let me know. If you're listening through YouTube, comment in the box below your thoughts on this topic. Anywhere else, you can do the same. Reach out, you can email, you can call. Let me know what you think about this. You have been listening to Toni On One Podcast, brought to you by Toni On One Radio, the talk show podcast station. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my talk show. I wish you the best, and don't allow anyone to fuck up your vibes. I've been your host, Toni Williams. Toni On One radio station listeners are awesome. Because of this, your voice is very important. Listeners are encouraged and welcome to call in live during a show or leave a message with your thoughts and opinions, whether it's the Sound Meditation Podcast, the Toni On One Podcast, the Sister Talk Podcast with Sister Such and Such, the Underground Podcast about music, or Inspire Our Podcast. We're trying to inspire the world. That's Toni On One Radio. So listeners' voice is very important. So give us a call at 318-315-3586. Again, 318-315-3586. And voice your opinion. Hi guys, this is Toni On One. And I am here to tell you a little bit about my radio station. All shows are by Toni On One Radio, the talk show podcast station. Shows are available anytime for download, play on demand, and they're on most of your podcast sites and or apps. Subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube. The name over there is Toni On One, as well as like, follow, and share on social media. We're on one. So tune in for raw, uncut talk.